I'm Christine Schiavone, and our show is Spiritual Exploration. Tonight, I have with me a special guest who has been with me before. He's done a couple of different subjects with us, and as a matter of fact, one of them is very popular on YouTube about the
Tree of Life.
Tree of Life, which is also the Kabbalah. Anyway, that one gets a lot of hits, and you might be interested in that one because it's really a good show. In the meantime, though, Stephen Popiotek is here with me again tonight, and he is here to talk about the Ascension Process, and which is a very interesting subject because we all have to ascend, right?
Sure.
So tell us, Stephen, what exactly is the Ascension Process? What is the goal? What is it all about?
Sure, it's definitely a vast topic, but definitely very relevant and pertinent to our times. And basically, even if you look at the basic idea of the word to ascend, right, to rise up, to be able to move higher, it has to do with a shift in consciousness, first and foremost. Shift in consciousness, we're moving from more of a third chakra point of view to a heart chakra point of view. So it's where love becomes the foundation of a society's consciousness or a planet's consciousness. So there's both a planetary shift occurring that fits into the category of the Ascension Process, and there's the individual and collective humanity aspect of the Ascension Process. They're obviously going to be in synergy with each other. So in other words, the planet, a planet like in this case the Earth, since we're talking about it.
The only one we know.
Since we're on it. Well, the idea here is also that it kind of opens up the doorway to a larger discussion about consciousness on other planets and other realms of our creation other than the Earth, and that this idea is that there is more of a cosmology of how planets form schools for souls to experience a given stage of reality, a given kind of, think of like going from high school to college, for example. There's different types of course curriculum you go through. There are different lessons you have to learn. So souls choose different planets from this perspective to understand and experience a given type of reality where you have, just like in like the TV studio, you have a certain set, you have a certain parameters which are put in place to provide the experience that soul wishes to go through and that the society wishes to also experience, a wide range of experiences. And so, but there comes a time, just like you have a set time for school, you know, there is a shift that's required where you kind of graduate, or the idea is that they can refer to it as a harvest.
Well, that's why we're here on Earth, is to learn.
It's exactly, and to learn and also to be of service. And so the idea here is that it's a shift from the third to the fourth chakra. So part of the main lessons is that if you even review some of the pretty much all the major spiritual traditions, whether they're religious or they're more lesser known, the main message has always been about love. All the major messengers and prophets we've had, or messiahs from different perspectives, have all talked about unconditional love being the most important thing, and that about an idea of a new kingdom, a new utopia, a new society where we can actually work together and cooperate under this idea that love is the foundation of all of our experiences. And so imagine a society really where love is the foundation of the political system, of the economic system, of our education system, of our interaction with one another.
Yeah, but that could happen, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Even though it seems like we're so far away from it,
yeah.
You know, based upon some of the things especially with the dramas we have in the media, it definitely seems like we're on the other side of that fence. But this also is part of the process. In other words, in order to really appreciate that in order to really understand and comprehend the lessons of love, you have to also be able to heal the shadow. And the shadow is certainly running quite a lot these days in terms of both our ability to, the importance of each individual to take responsibility for their own crap, basically, for us to be able to, you know, it starts with that, because you can get all airy-fairy with the discussions.
In other words, what you do, you have to be responsible for.
Sounds very simple, but we see in a society where, you know, where there's such about, in Western society especially, instant gratification and me centered ego reality, you know, and like more of the competition of the corporate world of, you know, trying to climb over people. You have quite an opposite kind of paradigm that's
exactly,
been in place.
Sure.
And that actually serves a function too, because the idea here is that the Ascension Process. I also always recommend these other books that are called the Law of One books, which for me, they also formed a strong part of my early spiritual growth. They were written back in the early 80s, and there's many different books I recommend people, but those for me provide some of the clearest framework of understanding part of what I'm kind of talking about. But from all my years of experience, I always want to test any knowledge I receive or, you know, I've applied from other people or hear from what I receive internally, because the idea also is that this is an age in which we're getting more empowered to be able to choose our own timelines or reality with more precision, with more focus, right? Being a master of your own reality. But it's not just from like the lower, ego point of view of creating a reality, because together we have a consensus reality, right? Together we have a collective reality. So you can't just isolate yourself and think that you're the only one that's like affecting our own bubble, of reality. There's combinations of whether you want to only focus on your own, say, objective and mission, or if you want to help the collective consciousness, to be of service to help the society evolve, into new paradigms of thinking, of society, orientations. So, and in terms of the ascension, there's actually a positive and a negative kind of shift, which is also occurring, which also can provide a background to understand a little bit more of some of the chaos that we're seeing in our society, is that there is kind of a parting of the way in terms of light and shadow becoming more polarized. And you can see that there's a lot less territory of people becoming more in the gray zone, where you see, either the extreme of people flipping out, or more religious, zealots going out, or just in terms of people's having more breakdowns or having more crisis. And it's not that's a bad situation. It's just that because there's actual shift occurring, because I mentioned that part of the catalyst for the consciousness shift is that there is a great cycle that planets go through. Everything is moving, right? Our Earth is moving around the sun. Our sun is moving around the galactic center, along with many other star systems. Our galaxy is moving with other galaxies, towards an even larger center, towards like a local cluster of galaxies. So everything's constantly in motion, but we kind of get an delusion sometimes that we're just here alone on our own little island on the Earth. So it's important that part of the ascension process is getting us out of our comfort zone, of our bubble, so that we understand that we're in a living, dynamic universe where the love energy of the one infinite creator, or the God consciousness that creates everything,
yes.
The unified field that unites us all together, that love energy is like the blood and the body of God. And that we're getting we're kind of like getting our heart activated again, because literally our solar system is entering a more charged area of the galaxy as it's moving. So there's a lot of physical shifts happening on the planet, which have to do with the restructuring of Mother, Father Earth, because the Earth is a living consciousness. So that's kind of an important tier on people to understand, is that we're not just talking about a big rock with chemicals and animals on it, but that there is a living consciousness that many people refer to as Gaia, more the feminine side of the Earth. And that the same way that we have our own spiritual growth, Mother Earth has been providing an environment for souls to journey, as she is like the great cosmic boat, moving through the galaxy. She's been providing patiently an environment for us to be able to explore a wide range of what it means to be a creator, both destructively and constructively. But now there's a great ticking of the clock, so to speak. And some of the ancients used to call it well, in modern terms, it's called the precession of the equinoxes. A lot of times people in astrology are familiar with that term, also as like the Platonic year. It takes about 26,000 years. Like when they say we're moving into the age of Aquarius, they're referring to that shift from Pisces to Aquarius that has to do with the wobble of the Earth.
And that's every 2,000 years, right?
About 2160 years, we basically move from one age of the zodiac to the other. And that part of this idea here is that we're not just moving from one age to another, it's the whole great cycle itself is shifting. And so at that point, we kind of are like, it's like your graduation test for your final exams. So as a collective society, we're kind of being put in our face all the things that we've had before, all the karmic challenges, all the tests that we've gone through is kind of coming up so that we can be able to choose now. Do we want to repeat some of this, or can we actually transcend it and move into a whole other domain where so much more infinite possibility is available to us to now create?
Most people don't get that, though.
Well, and luckily they don't necessarily have to consciously know this. This is a bigger thing going on that has to do with our soul's journey through many lifetimes. So it's not just something which is someone can decide to do right now. It's kind of like you've already been going through many schools for thousands of years in your lifetimes, assuming you've been on Earth that long, for example.
I've had 138 myself.
You've been around for a while on the Earth. Wow, that's
not as much as some people, though.
That's
I've heard
true.
people have
That's
had
true.
a lot more.
It is true.
They say that I like it better on the other side. So what do I keep coming back for?
Well, exactly. I could definitely relate to that.
Is that part of that's part of the ascension process, coming back?
Well, an idea in the sense that we're coming back because like the idea is that part of this Earth school wasn't finished yet. But now we're all having a graduation time coming up. And this is part of the beautiful process in terms of when we can look beyond the current scope of limitation that we have in the mainstream media and in people's lives, is that there is a greater change happening. It's almost as if you have a lot of these clouds. If you think of a society where we have so much lower thinking going on, but we kind of forgot that there's sunshine behind the clouds. So a lot of people have been kind of caught in these feedback loops of being caught in depressive cycles, or thinking that we can only make money a certain way, or that we have to even make money to survive. We have such embedded patterns of how we've been taught of what is acceptable and possible as being a civilization, right, or being a civilized society. And so we're having a lot of people coming up that are kind of like paradigm busters, where you have some of the innovators of society who are trying to bring out new ideas of art, of culture, of science, and technology. And part of the challenge is that there is this sifting going on between those who are choosing to be more of the heart-centered, focus of service to others, of helping the planet and themselves
Light
evolve.
workers.
Exactly. And then there are those who are kind of choosing the opposite side.
That's it.
And so the thing is that this is really this, and magically speaking, it's the left-hand path or the right-hand path. Right-hand path being more of the white magical path, so to speak, and the left-hand path being more of the darker magic systems. So the very opposite. And this is a thing, and that it's not about judgment in the sense of, that you're being judged by the creator in the sense of the word, but it's the idea is that a soul is choosing to want to either evolve more towards love, which is the doorway to unity, or more towards separation. In other words, those on the negative path are also evolving, and this is important to understand, especially for the spiritual community and more the New Age community, who may kind of only have been exposed to more of the positive side of the changes, who have a hard time understanding what could possibly motivate people, to control, entire countries and planets, and even to understand where the idea of negative extraterrestrials or abductions or reports you hear in the media about, like, from child sacrifices, all sorts of horrible things that have gone on from these darker organizations that have been behind the scenes. It's hard for people who are hard to understand how people can act like that.
Tell me about it.
Of course.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can't understand anybody wanting to do something negative in any way to another person, to an animal, to a tree, to the to the Mother Earth. I mean, we're here to respect all of these things.
And so and our understanding is that it's important to be able to, I guess, expand, because these are areas where we're tested with our ability to love, right, with our ability to forgive, and it doesn't mean that you're like allowing or justifying any kind of negative act, that you're experiencing. It's the same way if you're an abuser and you were in an abusive relationship. The idea is that you don't want to have the abuser have power over you, right?
That's right.
You want to be able to transcend it, but at the same time, you can forgive but not forget necessarily.
That's right. Yeah, of course, definitely.
But also, in the cycle of incarnations, a lot of times there are lifetimes where we were not necessarily only on the light side. There's the idea of balancing out our understanding of what it means to be of light or be of dark, so that we can understand how to transcend that duality and achieve a greater unified consciousness. And so, but before people do that, where the Earth is at right now, she's shifting her Kundalini, the same way that we have our Kundalini and our ability to raise our frequency, which is connected to the spinal fluid and our shift in consciousness. The actual planet itself has a Kundalini, which is shifting. And so some of this excess heat is not just by global warming in terms of some of the mainstream understanding of it, because they're only still treating it from a point of view where we're just victimizing the Earth and not looking at the idea that there's also other factors that are contributing to many things that we're seeing in our ecosystem that are beyond just what man is doing. And of course, man has done a wonderful, horrible job in terms of abusing the environment, which is totally not good.
That's right.
But if we're able to look beyond part of that limitation of what's happening, and you're tuning into the Earth, there's so many shifts happening inside the Earth. Like, I do a lot of shamanic work, a lot of grid work, where I meditate with groups at different sacred sites around the world, and it's like having, it's like tapping into the heartbeat of someone that's close to you. So we all have the ability to tune into shifts that are happening literally underneath our feet or in the sky, if we are able to silence ourselves long enough and really invite the angels and the spirit guides to provide an open venue so that we can tap into these other stations of reality that are happening all around us, other stations, other dimensions that interpenetrate our reality, that are beyond just the scope of our normal 9-to-5 life, so to speak, or the reality show that we call life. So there's many other stations, around for us to tap into, which can also connect us to the idea of other timelines, other possibilities in which we can exist beyond, again, just this linear choice. And that part of the ascension process is also that there's a shift in our perspective towards time, towards space, so that we become more delimited in our ability to not be so isolated to just thinking that we're in the physical body, but that the idea of the shift is that we're able to see energy even before we see form. So part of the physical changes of the ascension process is that we're shifting from 2-strand DNA to 24-strand DNA.
Well, that's a big difference, huh?
It's a lot of, yeah, and the thing is that there's been a lot of groups, and some of the more covert government groups in different parts of our planet, secret societies, that have been aware of this shift, and that they're quite aware that we're at that ticking of the clock where the great cycle is ending.
So where is this clock going to stop?
Well, again, it's not just that it's not like a specific date, like some were misinterpreting the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012 as being this.
At the end of the year.
It's more that it's that the idea is that also that time is more cyclical than it is linear. So we can be connected from, like, ideas that tapping into a greater now allows us access into larger domains of time where we understand that part of our soul's consciousness can link up, say, to past lives, and that the past lives are not just seen as being linearly present in the past, but that they can be accessible as almost like spokes of a wheel in time, and that we can be able to open up these kind of like astral doorways to bring in the energy that we can use to not only reclaim, say, soul pieces or talents that you had or heal traumas that you might have carried over from karma.
Past lives.
Exactly, but you can also, it's a two-way stream. It's you also sending light back into your past, so that we literally, that part of the shift, which is also in a way partly connected to what people are calling like the mandala effect, where different things are changing in timelines, or things that we even have in media or society are shifting, is that there is a reconciliation happening on another level where a lot of our experiences of different choice options that we've had as society individually are kind of coming together, because we are reaching that critical point where we are able to go into like a new ocean of consciousness awaits us, and that this new ocean of consciousness is about the heart center, and that heart energy, literally on a quantum level, the vibration of the earth is shifting, and that even scientists talk about the magnetic field of the earth, which has been decreasing tremendously over the past several decades, but more so the past 10 years. And that this is part of the physical shifts. In other words, part of the physical shift is that the veil, which is what normally we have when we come into a body, we forget about our past lives and our other awarenesses. The veil is becoming thinner, because we're now going into a graduation point where Gaia and many of the beings that have been the many beings that have been just behind the veil of perception are now coming closer to us to be able to welcome us into a new level. So in other words, a lot of the people that we have that are able to see spirits or the deceased ones, that phenomena is going to increase tremendously, because it's more about the third eye that has been veiled to perceive what is already around us. Seeing the fairies and seeing the angels, seeing other disincarnate beings or higher dimensional beings is all about your shift in consciousness, all about your ability to have your third eye, more open, like your dial tuner on the radio.
Like a raising in your vibration?
Oh, well, raising a vibration will certainly help you navigate what station you're going to dial into. Because there certainly are certain, just like TV, there's certain radio stations or certain shows that may go on that you may not want to watch, right? Maybe a horror show.
There's a lot that I pass.
So it's the same thing on the other side. There's like lower astral planes, right, where you have maybe lower thought forms, which represent shadow side of humanity, or you have more like negative spirits that are there that want to feed off people's energy parasitically as opposed to evolve them.
Yes.
So that's a lower vibration. So some people maybe who have done, say, for example, psychedelics, and they hadn't really opened up their own spiritual energy and their meridians and their third eye, they'll oftentimes get exposed to more of that shadow realm, because it's forcing open the third eye, so they're kind of seeing what's there. So if an area has a higher vibration, then of course the higher beings can be more present there, and you can interact with them more. So the idea is that the earth itself is shifting to become this higher dimensional kind of like New Eden energy, so that we're able to have more access to whole other stations of reality that were unavailable to us before. And so that means that we're going into this idea of not just having a limitation of options. We're becoming more limitless in our options. So more of galactic energies are coming in to show us that we're not the only world that has life on it. We're not the only world that has consciousness that has evolved into the heart. And so the awareness that we're not only we are not alone, but the idea is that there are many other worlds that want to welcome the earth into a larger galactic society, where we're really evolving
Is
our
that why
consciousness.
we're getting a lot of, people seeing spaceships and things like that?
Well, definitely the understanding of the alien topic is, so for me, such an important part of this, because they've been visiting us since like the dawn of time of life on this planet. We've had visitors from other planets. Now, but the important thing to see here is that it's not just about three-dimensional physical beings that are visiting the earth in actual physical craft. You have higher dimensional beings that operate from a whole different relationship to time and space than what we understand with our 3D mind. So there could be beings that are higher dimensional aliens that could be standing in a room, but you don't necessarily see them, because just like you'd have, say, a subliminal message in a TV screen, if it's vibrating too many frames per second and your eyes can't see it, like a subliminal insert, these beings on a quantum level are vibrating faster than our normal perceptual awareness is able to catch them. So that's why we have to shift our vibration to go higher. It's like having a camera that is able to capture an event that happens at a shorter span of time. Right, you need to have like a faster camera speed, to be able to capture things that are happening where the atoms are moving, so at like beyond like nanoseconds, like femtoseconds, billions, trillions of a second. It's hard for us to see that because it's happening so fast. But there are cameras that they make.
Is that why we can't see like angels and things like that too?
That's also because they're vibrating more at this quantum level where their frames per second are so fast it's beyond our normal visual perspective. The same way that we can't see X-rays with our eyes, just visible light, which is a very narrow range. But the idea is that as we're shifting with the new DNA, we're going to be able to perceive so much more. The same way that some people can see auras and more of the energy field, that's going to become the norm. So full like mind over matter telepathy becomes part of the norm of society that has ascended. Telekinesis, being able to do like things that we are being shown, in like Marvel movies, or some of the TV shows, X-Men, Avengers, things like that. There's so many TV shows and movies that are coming out that in a way are kind of preparing the population or trying to write the narrative a bit to be able to let people understand, subconsciously that these possibilities are indeed possible and are actually happening to some people. And that as part of that agenda, there are those groups who are not really interested in this, right? There are groups who are trying to slow down this process because their whole reality is based upon the matrix of keeping people locked in a control system. And that's not just humans.
For their own gain.
Yeah, for their own gain, but yeah, exactly, because they understand that their reality can't exist because having a well-trained population that's acting from a place of love and in alignment with higher divine will that can see through all the BS, and that understands that we can change everything, it definitely is a threat to those people that want to keep us in separation or ignorance.
And there are plenty of them.
Oh yeah, and they're acting more desperate now because we are reaching a point where so much of their game is going to get more revealed, in terms of even starting on small scale levels with whistleblowers, talking about all the spying and corruption going on in organizations. One of the biggest things that has to happen definitely soon in the next few years is about disclosure, and it ties us back to the idea that we're not alone in the universe. And you have a lot of different wonderful whistleblowers that have come out over the years, interviewing different witnesses in the military industrial complex who had roles in covering up the fact that we have had contact with many different species from other planets, have been actively working with different governments for many decades. And that's going to become more of a public announcement. I would be very surprised if it doesn't happen during this current administration.
Really?
And there are those talking about that there is a lot of rebel factions in our own government that are pushing more for this disclosure because we're reaching such a critical point where changes that are happening in our sun and our planet and our local galactic area are going to be accelerating so that they're not going to be able to create the illusion anymore that this other reality doesn't coexist with our own. When people start seeing spirits all around us at a collective, kind of psychedelic moment, it's going to be hard to explain that to society, So there has to be, those of us who are, and the people who are going to help, provide a paradigm shift for people, and so a lot of our positive galactic beings are going to be coming in much more actively, in terms of more master landings in that sense. This is something that is a potential positive timeline. And the idea here is that after a planet ascends, it is welcomed into a larger society, very much like Star Trek in terms of like the Federation of Planets.
In other words, I get what you're saying. Yes. In other words, like we'd be traveling to other planets, dealing with other beings, things like that. Think we're gonna see all that in our lifetime?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Not at all. Because every week there's work I'm doing even with clients I work on where we're tapping into their soul streams and some of their guides. And the idea here is that also there's a lot of beings that are here, incarnate in physical bodies, that aren't necessarily here for the ascension like the normal human families are. And you hear them as star people or indigo kids, or there's crystal kids. There's a lot of souls that have already ascended on other planets that were like Earth, and they're here waiting for the new school to arrive.
So now, where do we ascend to?
Well, again, it's more of it's a state of vibration that that shifts our relationship to reality. So all of a sudden, if you're able to see energy and have mind over matter abilities, it kind of changes the game, or like the parameters of the game. And then you understand that, well, wait a minute, we can have a whole different, I mean, even on a simple level, for example, the way that we've had technology suppressed for so many years, like real green technology has been kept out of the mainstream, where we have so much more of this, so much less efficient technology, say for energy production or for automobiles. The fact that we still use gasoline is a complete joke. The fact that we're using rockets, like outdated 70 years ago, technology, it's like there's giant firecrackers and they make it sound like it's advanced technology, and but then we have, there's all these amazing technology that the covert corporate governmental groups have been using in secret, like secret space programs that many people have talked about. I've met many scientists over the years and different intel people, that have confirmed to me a lot of information as well. And it's so many decades ahead in the covert sector of what we're exposed to. So even just having, baby steps, like, the government's admitting, hey, we have all this technology that can actually benefit humanity. What if we actually release that and let it help us out? Because the idea there is that those technologies actually are part of the paradigm shift, because they get people out of the idea that there's scarcity, that there's limitation, that there's lack. Because so much of the current system is about creating control and fear and separation, and trying to divide people in labels and isms, whether it's religious, whether it's cultural, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual. There's all this, especially now in the media, trying to make people so much more PC in terms of like, it's us versus them, or us and, it's everybody's has to be
Right, so when is this all going to stop and how?
Well, this is the thing. It's that it's this extreme energy coming in that's really revealing everything that's been hidden. So right now it's like sifting like the shaft from the wheat. So it's revealing what's really been contained in society that's been suppressed is popping up like a jack-in-the-box. So it's us, the next few years are critical really for us. 2017, 2019, I've gotten a lot of messages from my guides and channelings, is that it's a very important period in our timelines to really choose and envision, what do we want a new Earth to look like? What does a new society look like that is free of, where we don't have to worry about our basic survival needs at all, where we have free electricity, where we have technology that is so much more efficient, where we have a whole different type of society, where we can engage each other in dialogue, and where we're not caught in any type of war mentality. Even though it sounds so far-fetched, that is where we're heading towards. And of course, there's going to be a lot of shakeups in between that, because once this information comes more out, in terms of all the secrets that have been withheld from humanity,
a lot of people that aren't
a lot of people
like
are
it.
very pissed off. Yeah,
Yes.
so in terms of like it's a revolution of love, evolution. But it's definitely going to be a bumpy ride a little bit, because when people, like I said, it's going to be, we really have to be able to hold that heart space so that we can, have justice, to be able to come out with being able to not silence people anymore that have the truth. It's just like in the mainstream media, how people are so upset about, like about Snowden or about WikiLeaks, where we're so twisted in our society, where we want to shoot the messenger, even though the messenger has the accurate information. The media tries to distort it and create a whole political angle on it.
There's a lot of lies going on.
Yeah, and it's really like 1984, where they want to reverse everything and like punish you because you're telling the truth. It's
Not
absolutely
only the
amazing.
media, I mean, the media is putting out all this garbage, and then there's a lot of stupid people that believe it.
Very unfortunate truth.
They say that
ignorance is predominant for many reasons.
it's the truth. I mean, stupidity is knowing the truth but still believing the lies.
No, and actually, and part of that does tie into the earlier part of the conversation about groups that are trying to slow down the ascension process, because there's been massive campaigns to, there've been massive campaigns to be able to manipulate the collective consciousness's thought processes. Amazing weapon systems that have been developed to try to subliminally manipulate the population to feel a certain negative emotions, or to be able to guide us through the information warfare. And I have other video interviews I talk about where I've been exposed to that directly from different agencies that have harassed me with their technology over many years, and had physical meetings with people in the NSA who confirmed about harassment I went through. And that's all, for me, it's all tied in together as a larger collective understanding that this shift is really important, and that there are a lot of players on the game board which are coming out of the woodwork, and that it's up to us to be more sovereign.
I see. We have a guest that has a question. Roberta, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome, Stephen.
Welcome.
I have a question, well, actually, two different ones. The first one is relating to something that you said about climate change. On the one hand, I've been reading a lot that scientists have always told us that we've had an ice age around every 11.5 to 12,000 years. And a son of mine who's into science has said to me, it's been about that long since we have an ice age. And we have a lot of these people running around saying that we're into a global warming and we're going to be overheated and the icebergs are going to melt and the seas are going to rise and flood our nations. I'm just wondering how this fits in. I heard you say something about larger global movements that have been going on for eons of time. How this global warming that is supposedly started, the Industrial Revolution was about 170 years ago. How humans could have so destroyed the earth in 170 years, and particularly in the last 50, according to what they say, when an ice age has been occurring about every 11.5 to 12,000 years, and we're currently in that cycle. How does this jive? What are we supposed to believe?
Sure, yeah, and that's also important because there's so much disinformation as you're talking about going on, because a lot of the ideas that as we're evolving our consciousness, we're able to access more nonlinear states of consciousness where we can understand more of what is possible and being able to see outside the box. So so part of the tactics is that these groups want to overwhelm people with so much information, which is contrastive and very conflictive. Even the idea of like revisionist history, you mentioned about 11,000 years ago, that was a time when Atlantis had sunken. The idea even of a lost continent of Atlantis has been suppressed from our collective consciousness. So there's so much of our history that's been manipulated and taken outside the box because we've had technology similar to what we have now back in Atlantis that had devastated, and created some of the planetary changes from major weapon systems and wars that went on back then. So the geologists have no understanding on a public level to be able to understand like what could initiate a cascade effect that could affect the whole planet, 10,000 years ago when society wasn't supposed to be that advanced. So similarly, there's a lot of things that we're doing even with covert weapons now that have been affecting the Earth in a negative way. And what I see more is that these weapons that are going on and pollution has been more geared towards trying to lower the frequency of the planet and to keep people more in a collective box of amnesia and forgetfulness so that we're not able to take advantage of the new gamma rays, X-rays, different particles that are coming from the sun, coming from the galactic center. These physical radiation particles are positive. They're here to change our DNA. Gamma rays affect the DNA. And it's not just about creating cancer the way that people only want to create a fearful relationship to the idea of the word radiation. And we have to be able to get out of that idea because these higher frequencies of light, when you're in a heart space, they evolve your whole DNA and can waken you up to the fact that we're part of a cosmic web of loving relations that want to help evolve us. And of course, there's those on the other side who are doing the opposite. And they're going to be taken more care of in terms of countering them. But the idea is that as our magnetic field has been shifting, we're opening up more to receive more radiation from the sun and from other planets. And so when you understand the idea of the Kundalini of the Earth heats up our bodies. And Kundalini can either create more heat or more coldness in our physical body. So the same thing in the Earth, literally, is that part of the temperature rising has to do with Mother Earth clearing out the karma of the weight of humanity's role of being on her for so many thousands of years. So it's like burning through, almost like a healing, like detoxification. So yes, there'll be times where we're fluctuating. There's also a lot of man-made technology that's more advanced that's to do with weather manipulation, weather control. So they've been doing a lot of tweaking, creating earthquakes and storms and tsunamis that also kind of skew the data sets about what's actually happening. So for me, I would say I'm not really worried about it because I feel that as we shift more into 4D energy, which is the heart consciousness, and we're getting more quantum and stellar in our nature, we're going to be able to, and when we release the new technologies, we're able to shift the reality of what is possible literally overnight so much more easily. But if we buy into a fear paradigm only and keep the current status quo going, then we have problems. So part of it's about deconditioning, and not being overwhelmed by either side of fear, So I would say, well, all those things are possible. The flooding is definitely increasing in some areas, but it can definitely be accelerated, if we were to continue the way we are now. And that with new energy coming from the sun, it's going to increase a lot of our ability to resculpt our reality. So I would say I focus more on that first and worry less about some of the rhetoric that we're being kind of...
So are we going towards the ice age or the melting side?
Well,
that's what I'm trying to...
I would say it's neither in the sense that there are going to be effects on both sides of the camp going on, because the planet itself is restructuring to become a whole new dimensional arena. So energy and elements and beings that we haven't been able to communicate with are going to become more visible. So I wouldn't worry about the Earth going into a deteriorated state. Mother Earth is actually doing a lot better than we understand, that
Yes.
she's breaking out of the chains that have held her back. So if we don't limit her, she's not going to limit us. So I would say that we need to shift our whole paradigm relating to the idea of what it means to have to be a co-steward on a living body, and not just think that we're dumping on it and that she has no relationship to us. You know.
Okay.
So.
And my other question was related to what you were talking about, extraterrestrials and cover-ups. I wanted to know what your ideas were about the Area 51 or Roswell and all of that, because you didn't mention anything specific.
Sure.
And there were shows on TV about Area 51, the alien autopsy idea and all that.
Sure. There are different alien groups, and for me, is also like there are different alien groups that I'm in contact with on a telepathic level on a regular basis. So the idea is that this is not just a distant topic where I'm researching or reading about it. For me, the idea of the process of ascension is that we each have the capacity to awaken our own antenna systems where we can have dialogue with many different types of non-human intelligences that are here and that can be invited here that wish to establish a dialogue with us. And so you can also begin to connect to those realms, and at that level you can start to see some of the other things that are going on at some of these underground facilities. For example, like Area 51 is one of many, many facilities. There's actually several facilities even here upstate New York and other parts of the country where they're doing where there's a lot of negative ET groups that are involved with the government, more the shadow government. Area 51, I've met a few people that have had time there. There was one friend, one friend's relative, who only had a few months over there, and it's very compartmentalized in these underground facilities. So even people that are working there have very limited access unless they have that need-to-know access, so to speak. And so he was there as more like a smaller military project. We only saw certain areas of it. But usually after midnight, he'd hear certain machinery going on. He also had encounters with these, what looked like these Nordic ETs that didn't have a good vibe to them. But then he started losing memory, and he realized that they were actually putting some drugs in his food towards the end of his assignment, so he started forgetting everything that he saw prior to that. And I've heard that statement from a few different people that have been in different bases where they were putting drugs in the food to make them forget a lot of what they had witnessed. And I had another friend whose former husband was involved in a construction company, and he was involved in building some of the underground networks out in the Southwest. And another distant relative of mine had a construction company that was involved in some of the tunnel systems in the Southwest. And in that situation, he was driving out half an hour underground on the ATV at like 35 miles an hour, and he was still in the facility.
Wow.
So these are like cities underground.
So they could be hiding things there.
And even
that we don't know
Catherine
about.
Austin Fitz, who has done a really wonderful job. She's the one you could look up. She's talked a lot. She used to work. She was a former, I think, HUD commissioner and like FHA commissioner. She's written a lot about how the trillions of dollars of money had went missing post 9/11. The similar stuff that we hear about in the government, where this multi-trillions of dollars have been disappeared, so to speak, which is a joke. But a lot of it's gone towards these black op projects of building underground facilities. And she talks about that as being verified to her by some people that were connected to the Arlington Institute, which was a think tank in DC. And I've heard that from other people as well too, that, I've had another friend who worked for FEMA. Actually still works for FEMA, but he used to work also for some other agencies. And he was in Mount Weather in FEMA headquarters in Virginia many times. And he said that he also encountered these blonde hair, blue eye beings, who came out and talked to him. And they referred to themselves as Bob. And Bob. And sounds pretty funny, but I met another friend's relative who worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I told him a story that I had back in 2001, which was involving a meeting I had with an NSA contact who was kind of confirming things I talk about in other interviews, harassment I received from them over the years. We were interrupted. Our meeting was interrupted by a tall, blonde hair, blue eye, looked like a perfect kind of male model in a way, but had a really intense vibe. He walked near us, and my NSA contact just jumped and freaked out and said, I know that guy, and he ran and left the meeting, like as if death came over him. And when I relayed that story to my other friend's, brother who worked in the DIA, he mentioned, he goes, oh, so you met one of the Bobs. And I'm like, what? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I have half a dozen friends in the intel community, he said, who have
all named Bob.
who have been in all different underground bases in the US, and they all have met these blonde hair, blue-eyed beings. Then they call them Bobs, which is almost humorous, but they basically said that they were either fifth-dimensional ETs or they were part of a neo-Nazi Aryan human hybrid cloning project, that was going on.
And what you're talking about, there were some theories that I had heard about, or maybe it was on the show, that the president may not even be privy to this.
It's true, and I would say certain ones were, and during basically the Clintons were involved in this. I had another friend back during the time when Bill was president, when Bill Clinton was president. I had a friend who had played, he was in the musical profession. He had contacts in the White House. I don't want to go too much into who he was. But he had direct contact with them and was friends with a close person in Hollywood that was connected with the Clintons. And he wasn't into any of this alien stuff. And so he kind of freaked out when he was approached by this high-level Hollywood person, again, close family with Bill Clinton and Hillary. And they basically invited him. They said if he wanted to donate some of his DNA to be part of a human-alien hybrid project with these Nordic ETs. And they literally brought two of those beings with them to the meeting, and he freaked out. He said they had hues of blue and green that were otherworldly, and their vibes were very intense and negative feeling. They weren't the positive Nordics. Positive Nordics are amazing. I'm just speaking about the negative ones that were connected to some of these other secret space programs.
So there's positive
So the Clintons
ones
were definitely
and
involved
negatives.
in more of the negative ET programs. Another reason that I didn't like her.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roberta. So then we have these beings that are trying to help us ascend and some that are trying to thwart it.
Absolutely, and we're reaching a critical point with that because some of these shadow government groups are getting more creative in their desire to manipulate our abilities to receive the new codings. So every night before you go to sleep, it's extra important that we ask your angels and guides to really protect your space so that you do not authorize any energetic inserts into your auric field that would block you
Good idea.
from assimilating the new energies.
Yeah.
Because we have to we're becoming more co-sovereign and more conscious that we're a co-creator as the new energies come in.
So in other words, we just need to ask for protection.
To me, it's like part of my normal hygiene is to be able to reinforce your own center. And the idea is it's like feng shui, being able to reaffirm what do you want to invite in your space and what do you not want to have in your space.
Okay.
And that's down to the quantum level and cellular level and the spatial level around you.
Amazing, amazing. Now we have another audience person who's been a guest and will be a guest again, George. Hello, welcome to the show, and what's your question?
Thank you. Well, actually, first I'd like to say that you've answered the questions beautifully. Everything you're saying is beautiful. I love everything you're saying.
Thank you.
But while I was waiting to ask my question, I forgot what my question was. So one, I just want to say how great you're answering everything.
It's so funny.
And I guess one of the things was with global warming, and which isn't well, I tell everyone everything is real, and at the same time,
Not real.
none of it's real. It's your choice. So if you want global warming, you're going to have the reality where it's global warming. If you want the ice age, you're going to have that. If you want something in between, you're going to have that. It's really your choice. Maybe conspiracy theories, because like I say, everything is real, and at the same time, none of it's real. And there's infinite aliens, there's infinite, you're infinite. But what suggestions would you give someone who's really into the conspiracy theories, which again, real, not real at the same time, but it does affect their life, their behavior, and then they're creating or co-creating from an area of fear? What would be some of your suggestions that you would give to a person who's really into the conspiracy theories?
What you mean in conspiracy theory in terms of, well, that also, to me, that's a very wide kind of range of topics, right? You mean more so?
So pick one that's really going to interfere with a person's lifestyle, where they're going to make choices and decisions based on those conspiracies.
Gotcha. Well, for me, it's always important in my life, as also, even though I totally agree with what you're saying about the different possibilities and different timelines that are going on, is that for me, it's also the importance of being able to like reveal what has been suppressed, at least in this particular timeline, what has been hidden, so that we can bring light to it, take responsibility to move on, to transmute it. So an idea is that the more people, the more timelines we coexist in that are doing the same thing, that are taking responsibility and illuminating it and transmuting it like an alchemist, the more we can create a society where that ripple effect echoes across all the timelines, and it helps us move into a new singular timeline in terms of the new fourth dimensional, the new reality where we're fully ascended. And so, because the idea is that there are certain realities where we have already reached that utopia, of course, and have ascended, and there are other realities that are done quite the opposite.
By the way, those realities are so beautiful.
Right? No, I agree.
They really are.
Exactly. So the idea for me is that it's about bridge building, so that we're able to, so even for the people that are feeling that weight of that, I've gone through that on a regular basis. I mean, I get hit with stuff on a regular basis where I get kind of like different technologies, different agencies will test on me at different points to see, if they could because any government wants to test out their military weapons on their own people first. You know?
Yeah.
So, and this goes across the board. And so the idea is that they also are aware that certain people are immune to it. So they want to understand how people can block it, whether it's happening on a subconscious level or conscious level. So my experience is that, I've gone through a lot of that, or if I have certain things where I'm trying to break down their negative grids, like doing grid work, say, for example, I was doing last year in England, a lot of work on transmuting negativity there, and then I get back to New York and had a lot of the black helicopters flying over the events, and girlfriend at the time, I just started dating them, was getting harassed with projections, we were getting attacked in dream planes. So there was a lot of drama going on with physical pain and emotional turmoil, and people around us.
The powers behind the powers, they do love the drama.
Yes.
They do.
And so this
And they create it. So.
Exactly. No, seriously. And so the idea is that for me, it's about being able to, how do we reinforce our ability to bring love to those moments, to be able to bring unity to separation. And so those moments where I'm challenged like that, for me, is an opportunity to be like, okay, where can I ground my connection to divine will, my higher self in my body? Because oftentimes when they're hitting you, you're not as grounded into the new earth as you need to be, and you're usually cut off up here in the crown. So for me, I'm always checking in. I need to ground deeper into this new earth, where Mother Earth, who coexists in all timelines, is creating a new beautiful grid of heart consciousness. And that is allowing her to receive love from other star systems as well. And this anointing of love is available for us to regain our center.
You think it's going to take?
So the important thing is that we need to be able to regain our heart space, because the one thing they want to do is take away love from us.
Right.
And so the most important thing is for us to regain, not give them that at all.
Right.
And so even if you're feeling sad or hurt, whatever, go back to your passion. Go back to what makes you aligned up with the heart, that enables you to connect to a reality that transcends that duality. Even if the negative reality is right there with you, there's still a higher station that you can tap into, which overrides their system.
Right.
So in other words, you have to, if you're feeling negative thoughts and negative things, get rid of it. And that's
Affirm what do you want to fill in that space. So for me, I approach it shamanically. So I always call in the angels of the directions, because think about a three-dimensional reality like a cube, for example, right? We have the four corners and above and below. So for me, it's always a lesson in almost like auric feng shui, where we need to reinforce what do we want to enforce to call into our local creation. In other words, having the positive angel energies, archangels, into the directions reinforces your geometry. And our geometry is evolving so that we can transcend our limitations in time and space. So that becomes a whole new game in a sense of now we can tap into hyperspace, 4D geometries, where we can like quantum entanglement, we can communicate instantaneously with other worlds that are doing the same thing, because their geometry, like a big crystal, is vibrating at the same rate, and now we can hook into that realm, and like a superhighway.
And for some, that's already very easy for some on this earth to do, especially in this timeline. So the viewer out there in Staten Island, where we are, in this reality,
Yes.
would you say that the minimum that they can do, someone who's
Sure.
not going to get everything you're saying or that
Yeah.
I would say, but would you at least tell them stop listening or stop watching the conspiracies? Because just if they tune out to it, they're not going to be bombarded with that fear and those frequencies.
Yeah, I would definitely say for me,
For the minimum, because a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't going to realize. A lot of people don't know how to get inside their heart center
Sure.
yet. I mean, yes, go out and learn. Try, if you don't know how to do it, go out and learn. That's one of the things you're saying. But let's say
Absolutely.
the people that just aren't there yet, at minimum, to protect
Yes.
themselves, stop even listening or watching. Would you say that?
I would say at least for a while. I mean, because I also as a Gemini, double Gemini, I'm always about trying to uncover truth and exactly about truth. So I always want to uncover what's being veiled from. But there has to be periods of detox too. It's like there's emotional, energetic food that we're taking in, like you said, with our attention, and whether you're journalistically viewing the information as opposed to fully imbuing it with all of your emotions and your thought processes, that's when it becomes more dangerous to me in the sense of where you feel caught in it.
Right.
So for me as a Gemini, the idea is, okay, I want to observe what's being veiled and what I'm not being told, but I don't want to necessarily give it so much power that it influences me in that level. I want to be able to know what's there, at the same time choose an alternative. So I would say if you're able to navigate that way, that's great. But if you're not, get out in nature, especially now the new energy is coming in this spring and the summer. We're in spring now, but also is getting so beautiful. And with the recent Gaia challenge they've been doing, the mountains are the first area to really get a lot of new energy. And so they're getting major upgrades the next few months. So if you can get out to mountains, really meditate and connect to the core of the earth, the new core heart of Gaia, and let it come up through the mountains and see that this mountain is really a reflection of you, and that you have this larger hologram that you can tap into that is so much more potent than what you've been limited to And that the idea is that really being comfortable getting out of our own identity box of lower ego identification, is definitely also part of the process. And doing sun meditations, to me, the sun is such an important part of my work. So getting in nature, breathing in the sunlight, having gratitude.
Do you sun gaze? Because
Yes,
I love sun gazing.
That was what first got me into everything.
At the beach in the
Okay,
morning.
what do you do when you sun gaze?
Stare at the sun.
Yeah.
But I
Isn't
put myself
that bad
in
for
a
your
trance
eyes?
while I'm doing. Yeah, my eyes are open, staring directly in the sun. You do the same thing?
Yeah, but again, also because of viewership and also understanding, it's not just something you do when you're walking around necessarily for the average person.
For the first 40 minutes during sunrise
It would be like the normal kind of, I would say, recommendation.
would be a safe way of doing it.
Yeah. I started doing that, back like I'm 45. I started doing that. I was 21.
And what does that do
That actually
for
first
you?
got me on the radar with the shadow government because I started opening up portals, working with the solar energy in the middle of New Jersey, and the black helicopter started coming and it opened up a whole Pandora's box for me. but on the positive side of it, the idea is that we're not. What all the negative groups try to do is to disconnect us from the natural circuit of life's energy flow. When you understand that there's a circuit of energy, literally, magnetically, gravitationally, quantumly flowing between the sun and the earth. They're living partners in this dynamic exchange of life, traveling together in this great dance around the galactic center.
Well, what does sun gazing do
Well,
for
the
you?
idea is that we're plugging in. The same way you plug in your sockets of your computer into the wall for electricity.
Yes.
So plugging in your electromagnetic field to the earth, like being in nature, grounding in nature, and the ocean, the mountains, and the soil.
And the sun
hooks your
helps you do
field up.
that.
So the sun is the other side of that because it's constantly bombarding the earth for all this amazing love energy. Not just physical, but it's like the physical rays of light are imbued with love from higher beings that are on the sun, on higher dimensions. And it's like it's our local heart of God energy that is here to help us shift. So we've been so conditioned to be fearful of the sun and only use it under for beach to tan, as opposed to like old societies where we worked with pyramids. We understood that the sun was an important part. It's like stepping into a waterfall. When you would choose to meditate with the sun, you see that it's a metaphor of your heart. Thank you, George. That it's part of your heart energy. The inner sun is in your heart space, and that when we what I do is I do a basic thing where I face the sun. I breathe in each color of the rainbow into my body, so that each ray of light from the sun, I choose to not be a victim of too much, say, UV light or infrared where you burn. I ask my angels and guides to be around me, and then I choose one color at a time, because the sun is a perfect rainbow. And it's like the rainbow light of God consciousness that is giving life the ability to even exist, right, on our planet. So it's not just basic survival. It's imbuing us with so much more potency that if we let our bodies regain a kind of like an antenna, like retuning our antenna system so that we can breathe in, like plants breathing in sunlight, for the photosynthesis. Our pineal gland is, we're light sensitive creatures. So if we consciously tune into the sun and ask these rays of light, for example, I would breathe in each chakra and I would say the mantra for each chakra. And then I would just turn around and breathe the sunlight into the back of my body the same way. Because we store so much crap in the back of our bodies, aurically speaking. So if you stand with your back facing the sun and breathe in the chi energy, it's kind of like solar qigong, where you're breathing in the chi energy that's coming from the sun, and then you face again the sun to complete it. It's like completing a circle.
I see.
By the time you rotate back around again and breathe in each chakra, you should feel so much lighter and more energy in your body.
I'll bet.
It's a very simple practice, but it's so profound if we choose to re-engage a relationship that's beyond just the physical, while honoring the physical. And at that point, I kind of see, I visualize like a circle of light coming from the sun through my body, into the Earth's core and back
Are
up
you
to
saying
the
this
sun.
is what people should do? Is
one
envision-
practice, I would say,
Because I was
that's
going to ask
powerful
you
as a
for the last few
visualization.
minutes, tell everybody what they can do to bring their ascension about.
Well, that's it. And that for me, it starts with, first of all, recognizing that there's so much more light and love that's flowing through our planet and our relationship to other planets that we have been numb to. So it's resensitizing ourselves to get back in tune with not just nature in terms of how we view it in the past, but seeing, like, how does Mother Earth feel being loved by the sun? How does Mother Earth feel being loved by the light coming from other stars? And that's coming physically through gamma rays, to electromagnetic energies, to gravity waves.
So we should just soak up.
So the idea is
The energy.
You're asking your guides and your angels to help you transcend your own limitations of receiving love in your body and your life. Because we become so conditioned to limit and squeeze this kind of umbilical cord of love from the universe and think that we only can get love through certain partnerships or in a certain narrow way, that we've nulled our senses. We've numbed our senses to understand that we're constantly being bombarded with so much more energy that the creation wants to share with us, that's coming from other civilizations, that are coming from living parts of the body of God that we forgot about. So the first thing is that you're receiving love from the earth's core. That's important because you're in a body. You want to honor Earth Mother, Earth Father.
You sit there and soak it up from the
Ground,
earth.
yeah, visualize that clear, like trees, like a root with trees, going all the way down to the core of the earth, and also acknowledging that the spaces between the core of the earth and your physical body are like kingdoms, are realms. Imagine like if you're in a building, you have many things on each floor of a building. So if you're like standing on a giant skyscraper that's underground, right, and it goes all the way down to the earth's core, the idea here is that each of these floors are like levels of consciousness, are domains in which we can receive new codings from the Earth Mother to help in our ascension, because she wants to give us the new energy to transform. Many groups have tried to block that flow from coming up from the Earth's core in a smooth manner. They've gotten very creative, particle beam weapons, all sorts of things they've tried to bombard inside the Earth to see if they could dislocate that flow or see if they could create more like a detour. So the more we can visualize a clear conduit of divine love and light flowing between the Earth's core and your body, the easier it will be, because the next few years is that there's a lot of shifting going on in the interior of the Earth, where more of that energy is going to start percolating up, up, up until it reaches just below the crust in 2019. So next 2 years is a lot about Gaia redecorating her inner house to make it more compatible.
So in other words, in the next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of changes.
Oh, tremendously, tremendously. And then with that grounding of the earth, as I started before, work with the sun, because it's the most simplest relationship is the sun and earth. And the sense of that, it's the most direct source of God energy that comes physically to us.
Well, that's great. That's great.
And then ground that at nighttime. Let your next step be that our heart is evolving to what we call a star heart, where it's like new chambers are being formed in our heart chakra to allow us to receive love that is being broadcast from other planets. So part of the work I do is also upgrading some of the wording so that we can start to create new ideas, new thought forms.
All right, well, we'll be looking forward to all these changes over the next 2 years.
It's definitely the beginning. I would say between now, what they have us focus on is that 2012 was the beginning of a 13-year period to 2025, where we're in a really intense period to really create the new Earth.
Okay.
So these next 2 years are critical of how smooth or how not smooth it's going to be.
All right, we'll watch over the next 2 years. In the meantime, thank you very much for this. This has been really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I thank you for coming and doing the show. And
Likewise. Blessings.
thank you. You too. Good night.